When it comes to post-apocalyptic stories, the question is always the same. What do we do? How are we going to live to see tomorrow? And usually from a societal or economic perspective, we get one, maybe two answers from story to story, but the Fallout franchise throws almost every idea into a mix and lets the Wasteland decide what works and what doesn't. Based on the beloved video game franchise, the Fallout TV show is set roughly 200 years after a nuclear war reduced civilization to ash, and from the ruins, it shows us not only who survives, but how they survive, and more importantly, why certain ways of survival work better than others. Each way the people survive is a bet on whether human beings need one thing or the other after a collapse. What kind of society is upheld the best, or is it better for everyone to just strike out on their own? How can they make day-to-day life more comfortable in these conditions? And most importantly, when a society is finally on the right track and beginning to heal, how long is it going to stay that way? When we look at the vaults, we see a society that survives the apocalypse by excluding themselves from the apocalypse, honestly. Vault 33 specifically shows us community meetings, agricultural rotation, formal customs. There's even an intervault marriage ceremony. They adapt to underground life to preserve pre-war social norms in a controlled underground environment. The survival benefit here is a bit of a double-edged sword. On the surface, it's predictability. When people know their role, trust the rules, and share expectations about behavior, the energy that would otherwise go towards internal conflict gets redirected towards collective survival. It's social capital at its finest. The problem is that they come from this world of rules, and the Wasteland simply doesn't work like that. Hell, they're so domesticated that when they actively have violent raiders trapped in the vault, they tried to teach them literature instead of following basic survival instincts. But the show forces us to ask, what is this institution actually built on? Vault 33's residents aren't stupid, they're just made to be ignorant. They've been systematically taught that the alternative of the Wasteland is unthinkable, that it's anarchic, savage, chaotic, filled with people who are barely human. And this isn't true at all, although the Raiders make it difficult to believe. But we'll go more into that in a moment. The point is that it's a lie designed to keep them exactly where they are, where they're supposed to be. The lie about the surface is the institution. Manufactured ignorance isn't a side effect of the Vault, it's literally the mechanism it's built on. When Lucy reaches the surface and enters the township of Philly, she finds something that shouldn't exist according to Vault Tech, and that's commerce. Vendors, negotiation, informal exchange, a crude but functional marketplace. That gap between what she's told and what she sees is an adaptation itself. Philly quietly disproves the ideology that kept the vaults compliant. There is actual society up here, even if it's really harsh. The adaptation is decentralized market exchange. Trade and specialization are re-emerging organically, without any central authority enforcing it. No one built Philly directly, it just grew because people needed services and everyone had different skills. The survival benefit here is efficiency and resilience. Not everyone needs to know how to do everything, just something that someone else values. Philly's geographical location is also crucial to its economy. It's in the perfect spot to be a trading outpost for everyone. A major faction needs an ammo reload, here's a convenient town. A courier in the middle of the desert with a bullet wound, Philly has doctors and it's only one day away. It's a good location because everyone in the general area needs centralized goods. It also demonstrates informal enforcement without any government. In a small market economy, reputation is everything. You cheat someone and word's gonna spread really fast. That's how exchange self-regulates in the absence of formal law. It's imperfect and it leaves the weak exposed, but it works well enough that people keep coming back. So if Philly represents organic growth and economic township, the Brotherhood of Steel would represent the opposite kind of society in the Wasteland. Hierarchy is total, deliberate, it's a command structure. Experiences like Maximus's show us a world of rigid ranking and unquestioned command, with near-religious reverence for technology. Their adaptation is militarized technocracy. Their social structure exists entirely to acquire, preserve, and monopolize advanced technology from anyone and anything. The survival benefit here works on two levels. Controlling the most advanced weaponry, the most powerful armor, and even one-of-a-kind tech like airships gives you a massive practical advantage over everyone else. But institutionally, the hierarchy solves the coordination problem without deliberation. Everyone knows their rank and their duty. Everything is run by the elders, in this case Elder Quintus. What's economically interesting about all of this is that the Brotherhood practices resource monopolization when doing this. By hoarding technology, they create artificial scarcity that gives them leverage over everyone else. The reason Philly can't grow past being a trading outpost and other towns like it can't grow further is because they don't have advanced technology that would allow them to protect, defend, and grow themselves better. It's all taken by the Brotherhood of Steel. Eventually, the Brotherhood even takes Philly itself because they need the location, and suddenly the problem has become astronomically worse. I mentioned earlier that Vault-Tec lied about the surface to keep the dwellers domesticated. The truth of the matter is that the vaults were not made to keep pre-war society alive, they were social experiments created by a group called the Enclave that wanted to burn the world in nuclear fire, leaving nothing but their experiments and themselves to rebuild the world, with them as its head. And that's exactly what they did. They nuked the planet. It was a system-wide project. Vault-Tec needed people to believe that the surface was ungovernable, that the wasteland was proof of what humans become without corporate stewardship. That belief was supposed to keep them from building anything that the Enclave didn't control. It's here where I'd like to bring up the New California Republic, Shady Sands, and Vault 4. Vault 4 was a social experiment where everyone was genetically modified for better wasteland survival. The scientists running it were killed by their own test subjects, which were the very dwellers of that vault. And then the survivors did something that was never anticipated. They governed themselves. They wrote rules, established norms, opened their doors to refugees, and built a unified community without any indoctrination infrastructure that something like Vault 33 depended on. Vault 4 became what the vaults were advertised to be, not because of institutional design, but because its people were never successfully convinced that they couldn't actually do this. As for the New California Republic, it was also founded by vault dwellers, this time from Vault 8 and their descendants. They left their vault and built elected governance, intrastate commerce, rule of law, and diplomatic relationships between communities, with Shady Sands functioning as its capital. A recognizable functional society assembled from nothing by survivors with no corporate backing. It was imperfect, but it was real, and it's exactly what Vault-Tec's entire worldview said couldn't exist without them. So what did they do? They destroyed it like everything else. Not because it failed, not because it posed a convenient military threat, but because it really did succeed. It was a thriving, self-governing society built by the very people that Vault-Tec and the residents of Vault 33 were taught to fear and dismiss. It was the one thing the institution couldn't survive, and that it couldn't connect with. Funny enough, many refugees from Shady Sands' explosion ended up in Vault 4, where the two groups shared their common knowledge and eventually became one unified society that is still thriving by the current end of the show. It's ironic, Vault-Tec's experiment worked. New society was formed, but it worked because they couldn't micromanage it. They failed to actually control it, and that was the only reason why it thrived. So what is Fallout telling us about the post-apocalypse? Well, it shows us that humans are extraordinarily good at adaptation, markets reemerge, hierarchies form, even people who are treated as failed experiments find ways to govern themselves with more decency than their designers ever managed. But the show's deepest argument isn't really about adaptation at all, it's about destruction. Shady Sands proved that recovery is possible, governance and social trust can be rebuilt from nothing by ordinary people making collective decisions, and it was still wiped out, deliberately, by an organization that decided the wrong people were building the wrong kind of future. A question I see many Fallout fans asking is how humanity couldn't have rebuilt consistently in 200 years. It seems preposterous, but the answer is that they're not being allowed to. The wasteland is staying a wasteland because factions like the Brotherhood of Steel hoard technology and land, stopping small communities from growing. And when communities get big enough like the NCR, they become targets of puppet masters like the Enclave, who will only allow society on their terms. The wasteland is staying a wasteland because trade, commerce, and society are only allowed to grow to a certain point before being beaten down, robbed of what they have, or forced into war. And as I'm sure we all know, war never changes.